Wrestling has more than one crappy podcast, and this is one of them.
I mean, we're just doing our part to contribute, right?
Exactly. Yeah. What's one more out in the universe?
Right, right. I think the next step is I'll get back on Twitter and just start yelling at everybody who likes the competition to what I enjoy. That's
Exactly.
what we do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's episode 2 of Kris and Matt's Wrestling Podcast 2.0, and it is Royal Rumble season.
Woo!
Which means we're starting on into WrestleMania season. But I think if you polled most, not even diehard, I think most wrestling fans, other than the ones that like, I think even casuals, like the super casuals, though, I think love the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Like, this is it for us.
It's the most exciting 3 months or so of wrestling, in North America at least.
Mm-hmm.
This is the road to WrestleMania, and the Rumble is usually like that's where you get a bunch of surprises, not just with matches, but like someone will come back that you hadn't seen in a while, or we'll get a celebrity,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's just the event is WrestleMania is great for the pomp and circumstance and everything like that, but the event itself, I think the Royal Rumble it can't be beat when it's done well. Now if you get one like last year, not so much, but anyway,
But the year before that was outstanding.
Yes,
and as much as like a guy like me, I didn't care for the Brock dominating as long as he did. It's cool. They had never done it before.
Well, that was 2 years.
And then
that was 2 years before.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah. No, the year before last year was the Thunderdome one, and that one, like the women's one that year, was pretty good from what I remember. Because that's the one where Bianca went the distance, and they had that cool finish with her and Rhea, where like they both were on like the apron, and they kind of like looked at each other like, all right, let's get back in the ring and let's finish this, and Bianca ended up winning. So, and it had, and we'll talk about it here in a little bit, it had the second of what has turned out to be a Royal Rumble trilogy between Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns. So
yeah. Yep. I was watching the men's match earlier today, and I think that's why in my head I was like, it was the year before.
Yeah.
But that match in particular, like Carlito shows up out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
It hadn't been on WWE TV in 10 years, and he shows up. And that, I think that's to your point about the casuals. Like, that's why even the casuals love the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're just gonna take, we're not even cover every. I think we got most of the matches. I think the only other one that we're not really going to talk about is the Bianca Alexa match, because we pretty much know, I think, that Bianca's coming out of that still with the title.
Yeah.
I see no reason to take it off her right now. But we're going to go through pretty much everything else. I put up a poll on Twitter over the weekend, and a lot of you voted, so thank you for that. And we'll talk about where those polls are at as of the time of recording. I set the polls to they're not going to end till Saturday, the day of the Rumble, but I figured today was a nice halfway point to kind of like see where everyone's head was at to some of these matches. So.
And I think, to be fair, if you look at the card top to bottom, like you just mentioned, I think it's pretty clear a lot of these matches who the winner is going to be, but the stories that are being told surrounding them are going to be much more important than I think the actual outcome of the matches this time.
Right. So first up, actually, before we get started, please like and subscribe here on YouTube if you're watching here on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever else, subscribe there as well, and leave us 5 stars and leave a nice review. That would be helpful. But after you've done all that, then we'll start talking, and we're going to get this one out of the way. It's Bray Wyatt, LA Knight, in a Mountain Dew pitch black match. What the hell is a black match going to be, Matt?
It can't be any worse than the Firefly Funhouse or the one that he had with Randy Orton a few years ago, where it was daytime when they went into the house, and then they came out. It was nighttime, but
the House
they
of
were
Horrors.
on the West Coast, so technically it still should have been daylight outside.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is clearly just it's a promotional tie-in thing, and
Yeah.
they're like, let's throw it on the Bray Wyatt match. We'll do something kooky.
There's probably going to be some weird like purple lighting, or
Right.
something. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like, so I want to like Bray Wyatt so bad. Like I do. I really do. I loved the original Bray Wyatt character. I thought he was great. I even liked, the initial run of The Fiend up until they decided to rush him into a title program with Seth, and that blew up in their face. But like, and I was excited when he came back because I thought, like, even if I wasn't into everything he was doing, like, it was clear that he was one of the most popular people on the roster, and to release him like they did was like just asinine. Like, it made zero sense to me. So I was happy he came back, and like I want to be into this, but I haven't. This last couple weeks have been okay, but there was a lot of time between where he came back at Extreme Rules until now, the last couple weeks, that it's just been spinning his wheels again. So I'm excited to see him in an actual match finally.
Yeah, it's the same problem that's existed with him in the past, and it always exists with these supernatural characters. At some point, when you have to reel it into what we all kind of agree on as professional wrestling, it loses any sort of interest for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
The Undertaker, for a long time in the early 90s, after he had the belt from beating Hogan, there was like a 3-year stretch where they just had to keep feeding him these gargantuan guys for him to overcome. And then it's like, well, now what?
Mm-hmm.
If he's so good that he can destroy everybody because he's supernatural, there's no way that he should ever lose to almost anybody on the roster. And once he's been beaten, it's kind of, okay, we've lost the magic, so to speak.
Right.
I think if they would have just left him the original Shield Wyatt and just let him be this kooky guy from Southern Louisiana who's a little out there, but he still just goes in and wrestles, it would have been a lot better. But it's so out there now that it's hard to get excited for.
Yeah. And it's like he's got this like multiple personality thing going right now, which again could be interesting, but so far really hasn't been. Right. Yeah. I mean, we've seen it done right before. Yeah. But this one isn't clicking right now. You mentioned Undertaker. We saw a moment on this past week on Raw 30 where Undertaker came out as the American. Boy, I tell you what, you should have heard my wife. Like, she's like, the gong hits. She goes, "Ooh, Undertaker," and then she saw it was American Badass Undertaker, and she lost her mind. It was like, whoa, okay, calm down there, lady.
Oh, in a good way?
Oh, yeah. That's,
oh, wow.
So that's American Badass is her favorite version of Undertaker. I mean, it's mine too, but it's really her favorite. Yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah. Give me Rollin' any day of the week.
I think I'm second guessing the 2.0 version of this podcast. I had no idea. That's mind blowing to me.
Yeah, no,
07 Taker. It's 07 Taker. Come on.
Yeah, that's a good one too. But I loved American Badass Taker. So
fair enough.
But yeah, we kind of saw maybe like a passing of the torch moment between him and Bray Wyatt on Monday. So that was kind of interesting. Maybe like, 7 years too late, but it is what it is.
That's kind of where I was at with it. Like, where was this a long time ago?
Yeah.
it's there's just been too much bad in the middle there for
Mm-hmm.
me to be like, oh yeah, he's the next guy.
Right, right. So uh, the poll I put up pertaining to this match is I asked, so what version of Bray Wyatt will we see face LA Knight in the Pitch Black match? And I had Uncle Howdy, Funhouse Bray, The Fiend, or other. Um, and if you hit other, I asked you to reply. Well, 15% voted other, and no one replied with their choice. So I don't know what that means. But the Fiend is the leader with 77%, and Uncle Howdy had 8%.
See, I think it's going to be just a regular version of Bray. I
Yeah,
think he's
see,
just going to
I
come
think
out
so
like he did on
too.
Monday.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think it's just going to be this regular. I think we will see other version. You know, I think we will
Yeah.
see an appearance from Uncle Howdy. I think we might see, you know, similar to when his return at Extreme Rules when the sort of the the embodiment of the puppets come to life were in the
Yeah.
crowd. I think we'll see something similar to that. But yeah, I think we're getting just regular Bray Wyatt, at least for this match.
See, yeah, I could see a scenario too where like he starts his regular Bray LA Knight because Bray hasn't wrestled in so many months, blah blah blah, gets the upper hand, and then Uncle Howdy comes out, the Fiend appears, destroys LA Knight, and we're off to the races.
Shenanigans. Lots of
Yeah.
shenanigans in this one, I predict. Um so yeah, anything else on that match before we move on?
Now that you're saying it, if it's a pitch black Mountain Dew match, all the lights go out in the arena, that's when he reappears.
Yeah.
Book it.
Yeah. Not for
See,
nothing.
Hunter, this booking stuff ain't that hard.
Yeah. Not for nothing. Pitch Black, pretty good Mountain Dew flavor.
Yeah, yeah. I prefer the raspberry lemonade variant
Oh,
that's come out,
oh
but
yeah, for sure. No, it's definitely it's like fourth, you know, behind. It's like regular Mountain Dew, Code Red, the raspberry lemonade, and then Pitch Black.
okay. I'll agree with that.
Okay, all right. Let's do the women's rumble next.
Okay.
This is one where I don't think there's any. I I don't have a read on who they're going to. There's like not a lot of people who could win, but also there's a bunch of people who like everyone's on the same level. It feels like.
Yeah, in that none of them feel like they're ready for that jump up to the main event at Mania or a
Mm-hmm.
return to the main event at Mania.
Right.
Um, which I kind of like because as we're going to get into, when I was looking at betting odds and stuff on that, there's one clear betting favorite,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not so overwhelming that I'm like, yeah, that seems like the go-to. And especially with how Bayley and Becky played out on Raw, I thought that was going to be kind of the end of that feud, and then
Mm-hmm.
one of them would be maybe the next favorite, and I think that's going to be going on a little longer.
Yeah.
And also, I don't think Becky needs the win.
Mm-mm.
Bayley, I think, would be interesting, but she's already kind of had her feud with Bianca, and I don't need to see Bayley and Charlotte again.
Right. Well, and that's it. Is you got to look at who the champions are right now and who they could be between now and WrestleMania, and I don't know. That's why I think you look at Rhea is kind of who I lean towards right now. If you had to, if you had to get a prediction out of me, I would go with Rhea because I think the work she's doing right now with Dom and the Judgment Day is great stuff. It's it's gotten over, whatever over is today. And like you could see her, she could either face Bianca like we mentioned earlier with the ending to the 2021 Rumble match between those two, and they're kind of the embodiment of the next generation here of the women coming in behind the horsewomen.
Yeah.
Or you could do the rematch with Charlotte and give Rhea that moment back at WrestleMania by beating Charlotte. So that's why I would probably lean towards Rhea, and that's what people on Twitter have leaned towards too. Rhea has 67% of the vote right now. Becky has 17%. Other has 16%. Again, guys, read the directions. You got to give us who you think it is if it's not anyone listed, and no one guessed Bayley. So, which to your point, like we've done the Bianca feud to death, and no one's really clamoring for another Bayley Charlotte match.
Yep.
So
yeah. So to your point about Rhea, according to Bet Online, as of this afternoon, Rhea is a minus 140s. For those of you that aren't familiar with gambling, that means you'd have to wager $140 to win $100 in profit. That she's the overwhelming favorite at this point because the next closest odds are Becky at plus 300. Oh, wow. So a $100 bet would mean a $300 payout. So there's a pretty big gap there between the two. But I will give you a dark horse that if you're into the betting thing, or even if you're not, you just want to keep this in the back of your mind. We know the WWE loves to have their celebrity wrestlers get big moments at Royal Rumble leading into Mania. Ronda Rousey is plus 3,300 to win the Royal Rumble. I think that is, in the back of my mind, I could see them because they don't have a clear favorite that makes sense in terms of the television product, her getting the Rumble win and then challenging Charlotte again at WrestleMania, which would be brutal. I think neither Becky nor Ronda should win, and they should just have their singles match one-on-one at WrestleMania and get that out of the way before Ronda fades into obscurity.
Yeah, that would be bad. That would be the sign that everyone's looking for, that Triple H isn't running the show anymore. If Ronda ended up winning, So yeah, I mean, it's looking like Rhea's the favorite here.
That's my pick. That's who I think is going to win.
So. What about surprises? Who are we kind of thinking maybe for some surprises? Was there anything? Was there any kind of I don't know. I didn't specifically tell you to look for this, so if you didn't, no problem. But was there anything in your research on the betting as far as like appearances?
No,
okay.
And when we get to the men, there's a couple interesting names. So I don't think that they're planning anything crazy. There were some legends in there at crazy odds that are there every time. It's like on the men's side, you can get Bad Bunny at like plus 10,000 or something. Mm-hmm. Bad Bunny's not winning the Royal Rumble, obviously.
Right.
So like, I didn't see any names, but I would expect, especially considering there weren't many women legends at Raw this week.
Mm-hmm.
Your Trish's, your Lita's, they've got a shot at getting in there. I think I saw something that Jazz may have been asked if she was going to be there, and she didn't come right out. Like, she denied it, but a lot of people kind of took it as, she denied it because she's going to be there, and she didn't want to ruin her payday and stuff.
Right.
But I think the big one is Sasha, but there's no way she's coming back.
No, she's not coming back right now. Not with
maybe
that.
Naomi.
Naomi is the one, and the other one that I'm looking for is Chelsea Green, because it's been long, for a few months now that her for sure, and maybe Cardona are both on their way back. So I would expect in ranks of confidence, I would say actually Chelsea Green 1 and Naomi 2 out of those.
Sure.
So
I think the Naomi stuff, if she was coming back, they would have brought her back a while ago to, I think, lead her into the bloodline stuff.
So and we'll talk about the bloodline stuff here in a minute. I actually thought during that tag match on Monday when Rhea started interjecting herself again, I really thought that was when Naomi was going to show up, because eventually, I don't know if they plan on extending this Judgment Day stuff any further between them and the bloodline.
Sure.
Or if it was just a couple week build. But, you had Rhea stand up to Solo last week and then had her get involved in the match this week.
This week. Yeah.
It kind of feels like the Bloodline eventually is going to need someone to handle Rhea. But they could
it could be Tamina,
It could be.
I think stature-wise, that makes more sense too.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
I wouldn't like it. I would be more in favor of Naomi coming back, but
yeah. Anything else on the women's Rumble or?
Just real quick, back to the betting thing. Rhea is also the favorite at plus 150 to last the longest and have the most eliminations at plus 100. Liv Morgan, plus 150 to be the Iron Woman of the Royal Rumble. That might be, I know she's got a lot of, maybe not underground is the right word, but she's got a bubbling of fan support.
Yeah.
Might be a good way to give her something memorable in the Rumble without having her win the whole thing.
Excellent. Well, so then let's move on. Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. As I mentioned before, this is a trilogy at the Rumble. They faced each other in 2017 in the same building in the Alamo Dome for the Universal title. And I believe that's the match where Jericho was in the shark cage. I'm pretty sure that was the match.
Yeah.
And then again, they wrestled in 2021 in the Thunderdome. It was a last man standing match, and that's the one that was such a good match up until the finish got screwed up because they couldn't get the handcuff keys off of Roman, and so it kind of just ruined the finish. But other than that, that was an excellent match. I think we both can agree the result of this match isn't in doubt. We know Roman's probably coming out of this, but I'm not going to speak for you, but for myself, I'm still wildly invested in this match, and I think that's the beauty of pro wrestling. One of the best things about pro wrestling is when you have a match that you know the outcome of going into it, and yet you still are emotionally invested into that match. And this is one of those instances because this has been a really good feud. The Bloodline itself has been the best thing in wrestling for a while now, and I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, the key is they have to deliver. When you know the outcome of the match, and I don't mean deliver in terms of a good match, I mean deliver in the payoff to the story.
Yes.
Whatever they're going to do here, it has to be done really well. And I know there's and we'll get into it with the Rumble match. There's fans are like, well, will Sammy turn or do they turn on Sammy? And how does that, whatever they're doing here, this match has to be like lighting the fuse to the big explosion that I assume is going to happen later in the night or in the next week or two.
Yeah.
With Sammy and the Bloodline.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So I had a poll, and this one has the least amount of votes so far, but it was also the last one that I posted, so that probably has something to do with it. But I asked, will the Sammy Kevin Owens Bloodline story advance to the next logical step, which is Sammy out of the Bloodline at the Rumble, and how? And the choices were no, yes, and Sammy turns on the Bloodline, and yes, the Bloodline turns on Sammy. And so far, that the Bloodline turning on Sammy is 100%. I don't know. They could, and that's the fascinating thing about this is I'd be fine with almost all of it. Like I'd be fine if everything stayed status quo for another week or two. I'd be fine if Sammy finally like stood up for himself and helped Kevin in a moment of need, but I'd also be okay if they all flipped on Sammy. But after Monday, like I don't know if that's going to happen either, because the beautiful part of that whole thing was that now Jay is Sammy's biggest defender when he was his biggest hater for the longest time.
Right.
So it's so fascinating.
Yeah, and I think what's going to be interesting is, Roman on Monday said he doesn't want to see Sammy again until the Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
Well, does that mean the Royal Rumble match, or does it mean the day of the show? Because what if there's a situation where, hey, where the hell were you? We needed you out there, And Sammy goes, you told me to stay away. You told me not to come around until the Royal Rumble. I'm doing what you asked me.
Right.
And then it feeds into the well, is he really helping Kevin or not?
Yeah.
And then in the Rumble match, I think is where we're going to get the turn, so to speak. Either one of those two sides is going to flip on the other one,
mm-hmm.
or at least give us the indication of what's going to happen in that match.
Yeah. So let's let's talk about that first hour of Raw real quick, and that'll roll us into the Men's Royal Rumble match. It's if I would have said to you 5 years ago that on the 30th anniversary of Monday Night Raw, that the whole first hour would pretty much center around Sami Zayn, what would your reaction be?
I'd have been over the moon. I'd have been thrilled, but I would have never believed it, not in a million years. I saw something to play off that. I saw something on Reddit, Squared Circle, yesterday that was like, if you'd have told wrestling fans a year ago, because 1 year ago today was when Cody was wrestling Guevara in the ladder match on Dynamite.
Right.
Or 1 year ago yesterday, excuse me. If you'd have told wrestling fans a year ago that the two favorites to win the Royal Rumble this year would be Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes, no one would have believed you.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Mm-hmm. And
it's a testament to what Sami has proven he can do. Not in the ring either. We know he's a good wrestler, but his character work over the last 2.5 years is, I think we're going to look back at it as some of the best stuff that's ever been done in North American wrestling. It's outstanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's what a year he's had, because this time last year, heading into the Rumble, he was, beginning his feud with Johnny Knoxville that went all the way to WrestleMania, and that match ended up stealing night 2 of WrestleMania. And then from there, shortly after that, is when he started his association with the Bloodline, and that has carried him all the way through the rest of 2022 into the beginning of 2023. And we're at this point now where he is like a legitimate, I wouldn't call him the favorite, but he's like in the top 3. There's 3 people who you think he's top 2?
The betting odds have him as top
odds.
2.
I'm thinking there's the third one that we'll talk about that is looms over everything, and until like Saturday gets here and that person doesn't show up, like it's still in the back of my mind as a possibility that he comes in and wins the Rumble. But yeah, as far as people who are actually on TV, he's one of the 2 leading candidates right now to win the Men's Royal Rumble.
Well, and not to belabor the point, but his work has made everyone in the Bloodline more entertaining and more interesting just because of how he is handling his role in it. He's made Roman into this almost mythical creature, so to speak, of like he's the head of the table and Sammy will do anything to prove his loyalty to this guy. And Roman doesn't even have to show up most weeks. Yeah. And he's almost getting the Sammy rub instead of the other way around, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and when this eventually splits, people are going to hate Roman, and it's because Sammy has done just such an incredible job.
Yes. So I put out the poll, and I said who will win the 2023 Men's Royal Rumble, and I said Cody Rhodes, The Rock, Sami Zayn, or other. And Cody is in the lead with 67%, and then The Rock and Sammy are both tied at 17%. And I'd say I think yes, Cody right now I think is probably the favorite, but I don't think, you floated it to me, I don't know, a month or two ago, in our text conversations about Sammy winning the Rumble, and I dismissed it because I just didn't think that there was any way, and I'm still not convinced, but I'm at a point now where if that's what they decided to do, I would be totally on board with it. And that's coming from I love Cody. I can't wait to see him return on Saturday. But yeah, I wouldn't be able to be upset if they decide to have Sammy win the Rumble.
Yeah. When I texted you about that, I'm of the camp that if Cody wins the Rumble and Sammy's out there, people are going to be upset. I think people are going to be really upset. And I know Cody, they're going to be in Texas and yada, 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 whatever. That's a possibility, but I think the real issue is they have done this returning superstar comes back from injury and wins the Royal Rumble and goes on to win they've done this so many times. You could do that again in a year or two when the next person is hurt and is coming back. You have a chance, much like Daniel Bryan in 2014, to capture lightning in a bottle and create one of those moments that we talk about as wrestling fans. Yeah, it'll be a moment when Cody wins eventually. But I think doing it for a guy like Sami Zayn, who has elevated not just himself, but the entire product you just said it, he's been on a 1.5-year run. Give the guy his flowers. I know Kevin and Sammy could win the tag titles against the Usos, and it would be a big deal. Sammy winning a title or winning the Royal Rumble and going to Mania would be a story that you can't just manufacture in a 3 or 4 month build. They've had so much time into it. I feel like that's how you need to pay it off.
So I have an idea where everyone gets what they want. Or everyone gets what they want. Sorry. If you remember, so 15 years ago, 2008.
Yep.
One of the greatest moments in Royal Rumble history. You mentioned it. The returning superstar from injury. This one was a surprise, though. No one expected to see Cena. Cena comes out at 30, wins the Rumble. He decided, though, not to use that title shot at WrestleMania. He did it for the next pay-per-view. The next pay-per-view after this year's WrestleMania, or this year's Royal Rumble, is the Elimination Chamber. And where is Elimination Chamber being held? Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Sure.
So I was thinking you could have Sammy win the Rumble, and then after that, obviously, he gets kicked out of the bloodline. And so then he decides, you know what? I'm not going to wait till WrestleMania. I want my shot in Quebec. I want it in Montreal. And he fights valiantly and comes up short somehow. And then from there you can spawn off into where I do think, especially the way Raw played out with him helping Jay retain the tag titles, I do think that's where eventually the end of the story is him and Kevin Owens beating the Usos for the tag titles. I still feel that. And from there you can go into that. But then also you need an Elimination Chamber match, right? So then that's where Cody earns his WrestleMania title shot, is in the Elimination Chamber.
Right. And then that frees up Dwayne to come in and have Roman on the second night of WrestleMania, which we haven't even gotten to him as part of this Royal Rumble discussion.
Yeah, he's I think that them switching that segment from an acknowledgement ceremony to the trial of Sami Zayn on Monday, I think that was low-key them tipping their hand that they don't have Dwayne.
Maybe. I mean, the story that's come out, and I know we don't want to talk too much backstage, but it sounded like Afa and Sika were not well enough to travel. And I guess Rikishi has been sick too. So they had three people they were planning on bringing in. They couldn't bring them in. So they rewrote the show last week before SmackDown to get to where we're at now. And that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, I think Afa and Sika are in their 80s.
Yeah.
Like, if they're not well enough to travel,
Yeah.
how do you have an appreciation ceremony when you don't have the elders of the tribe
Right.
there? It's just the same group that's there every week. So
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
So the betting odds, you know, we've discussed, Cody is minus 160,
Mm-hmm.
Sammy is 200, The Rock is plus 350. Like you said earlier, those are the three guys that everyone is kind of keyed in on. I think that the money is that because there's money coming in at odds that low, it's kind of a sign that there's some traction there. I don't know if he's going to win the Rumble, but he could show up maybe as well. And maybe he shows up and he throws off the Bloodline's plan to dominate the Rumble or whatever. And that's how Cody, you know, ends up with the match. You know, just spitballing a way for The Rock to be in it and not win it. Because I think if The Rock comes in and wins the Rumble, you are going to get a situation where people just don't accept it. Not in the building that night, but on the build of WrestleMania, I think people will reject The Rock as the Royal Rumble winner facing Roman at Mania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That match doesn't need a title. It doesn't need a title.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, and I've seen this floated, what you said earlier, floated out, and I don't see it happening. But I've seen people say, well, if they have Cody win instead of Sammy, you know, they're gonna. I don't think that's gonna happen because I just think that people have known, like, the difference with Bryan is that, like, Bryan was already world champion. The story going into the Rumble is that the Authority had been screwing Bryan out of the championship for months. Like, there was more to it than just the fans getting behind Daniel Bryan. Like, I mean, that was a big part of it, but the storyline was like the perfect storm. And I don't know if we have, There's a storm here, but I don't think it's a perfect storm.
I don't think the Cody Rhodes story is as strong as a lot of people do. And again, if I'm the WWE and I'm trying to run an organization, right? And Sami Zayn has put in work, pardon the pun of putting in the work, for 2.5 years to go from this guy that was kind of floundering in the mid card to being one of the top acts in the company. In the meantime, the other guy came back last year because he went and started another wrestling company and spent years talking shit about that company. Okay? Then he comes back and it's a hero's welcome, yada, yada, yada. If I'm running a company and I've got employees to answer to, I'm not going to overlook the guy that has been here for 2.5 years and is finally at a position where, like, it makes sense just to give it to a guy who's left, trashed our company, came back, and is now a favorite of some of the fans, but not everybody loves him either.
Yeah, we'll see. I just think. I think more.
All that being said, go ahead.
No, I don't know. I just think. I really think it's about. I think the fans of, like I said, I think if it's one of those two, I don't think anyone's going to be upset either way.
No, and to be, if you said I'm giving you $500, but you can only use it to bet on someone to win, I'm picking Cody. Cody's probably going to win, but for me, I would like to see something different because we've seen this story too many times.
Yeah, that makes sense. I get you there. Real quick, do we expect any surprises in the men's match? I mentioned Cardona earlier.
Well, there is a big one that has hit the books that they're not taking money on anymore because the Texas Rattlesnake was listed as the second best odds to win the Rumble as of this afternoon, and then they pulled the offering. You cannot place bets on. Yeah, and there's been a rumor out there that they offered him a lot of money to
Right.
come in and face Roman. We're not getting into the rumors, but that name is being floated, and there's money on betting sites moving towards that name. And it's not plus 10,000 like I was saying for Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
I got a feeling he's if they're gonna pull out a big surprise and it's not Dwayne, I think that's your surprise.
Interesting.
And that's one that's like,
They're
holy
in
hell.
Texas.
You bring him back and have him win the Royal Rumble. Like, I don't think anyone's gonna boo Stone Cold winning the Rumble and going to WrestleMania, even though I don't think that's the best idea.
I don't think it is either, but yeah, I mean, what are you going to do at that point? Like, it's Austin.
And exactly. If Stone Cold says, "Yep, I'm willing to come back and wrestle at the main event of WrestleMania," you go, "All right, sorry, Sammy, sorry, Cody, hit the bricks."
Yeah.
But then me,
Yeah.
the I hate when they do this.
Yeah.
I would be long term, I'd be pretty upset about it. Short term, I'd be all right.
Yeah. It'd be all about how they followed up afterwards. Because yeah, obviously, at that point, you're not putting the title on Stone Cold Steve Austin. So
sure. I mean, maybe you do.
Maybe you
put
do.
it on him.
Why not?
As far as other surprises, I saw Braun Breaker's name out there. Stevenson has been mentioned. Logan Paul was one of the names I saw, but I think Cardona makes the most sense.
What about Cena? Is there any action on Cena?
He was plus 5,000 to win the Rumble, so I don't know that he's going to be there. But I mean, he's a dark horse. You could get him in there, but I don't think he needs to make a surprise appearance at the Rumble just to come out and get thrown out. He can show up on like a Raw or SmackDown unannounced. And
What about Brock?
Get people excited. He's plus 5,000 as well to win the whole thing. And with the who's a dark horse? Betting odds. Seth at plus 800. If you want to take a risk and throw $10 down to win 80. I mean, Seth Rollins is probably your best long shot to win.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, all right. We've already gone a little long, but I do want to talk about this. So real quick. So tonight, as we're recording this, we're getting Mark Briscoe on Dynamite.
Yeah.
And he's wrestling Jay Lethal. And I'm happy for it, but and tell me if I'm off base here. I'm almost more pissed off now.
Yeah.
Like that it took his brother dying and then like in an outpouring of public outcry in the weeks since to finally get him on TV. When, we mentioned it last week, and yeah, real successful that slap fight is, whoo boy. And then, like, even in the people they allow on the person that Mark Briscoe is wrestling tonight is not without his own fair share of controversies.
Yeah. I mean, Warner Brother Discovery is just, it's a shitty organization. It's you're a big comic book guy. You've seen what they've done to your films, but they'll stick with Ezra Miller. They got no problem showing countless hours of old movies that are no longer culturally appropriate, but couldn't put a wrestler on because of something he tweeted 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And couldn't let his friends acknowledge his existence on TV. But don't forget to tune in for Dana White's, slap fight, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, I probably shouldn't be this way. I should just accept it and be happy. But when I first saw that yesterday announcement, my immediate reaction was I was even more upset than I was before, because it's like now really,
Yeah.
the two him and his brother could have been on TV this whole time.
Yeah.
They could have been on TV this whole time.
But it was just it's just them, with their fake standards and practices. What's good for the goose isn't always good for the gander in these media worlds, and it's nonsense. And when I first saw it, I thought, oh man, did TK just like stand up and say, I don't give a shit, I'm doing it anyway, and if you throw me off your network, I'll find another place. But it sounds like they got the go ahead from Warner.
Yeah, it sounds like I said, it's probably they got enough angry tweets and whatever. The public react. I mean, there was an article on Awful announcing about it earlier this week. Like it didn't go under the radar like I think they were expecting it to, and so I'm guessing the public pressure was enough where they're like, all right, fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, as a fan watching it, like I don't know how I always feel about these tribute shows and matches and stuff like that, because I'm not a wrestler. I don't know what it feels like to perform and want to pay tribute to your friend and colleague that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always really hard for me to watch those matches and enjoy it.
Right.
Because it's just, and this isn't about enjoyment for the fans and stuff. I totally get that.
Mm-hmm.
And I say all that to say that, like, kind of like you, I don't know if I'm excited to see it now, because it should have, he should have been on TV for a long time, and Mark should have been on TV for a long time. And just, this is Mark Briscoe's first big, TV match. And it's got the, the unfortunate cloud of his brother's death. Like, I'm not excited for that at all. Like, I almost feel bad kind of that our entertainment is based around, the circumstances surrounding, why Mark's there in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. All right. Well, is there anything else?
No, I just, I don't think we gave our official men's predictions, but I think we're both in the Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Cody as my prediction. But again, if it ends up being Sammy, I'm not, by no means am I going to be upset about it. Cody will get there eventually. They might even, they could do it at SummerSlam. I'd be all for that. Yeah, let's do that.
Well, it depends. It depends if they announce if Detroit's actually getting SummerSlam or not.
They better give us a good SummerSlam.
Oh, what? You weren't happy with '93? Come on.
I mean, at the time, I didn't know any different. I had a great time, but looking back, Marty Jannetty versus Ludwig Borga does not really float my boat anymore. I did watch I watched the '93 Rumble today.
Oh, that Rumble has a soft spot in my heart. I was bickering with someone on the internet the other day about how that Bret Hart Razor match at '93 is like a grossly underrated Bret Hart gem. That match is so good.
Mm-hmm.
And Heenan and Monsoon are at their peak on commentary in that match.
You know what? That's the whole show. Like the Shawn and Marty match. Like when Gorilla and Bobby are on, they are the best duo ever.
Yeah, they're untouchable. It's not, to me, it's not even like it's close, but with King and Jarrett. No. Monsoon and Heenan is the best it's ever been.
I did have to laugh that Heenan didn't know how to pronounce narcissist.
Yeah.
When he
doesn't he call him a narcissist?
Narcissist.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite line in that Bret Hart match is they're fighting on the outside and they go past Stu and Helen. And Monsoon goes, some words of encouragement from Stu and Helen Hart. And Bobby goes, yeah, I heard Stu. He said,
So good. Oh, and This is what one thing I want them to bring back. When the people are making their entrances in the Rumble, give us the main shot on the ring, but give us the picture in picture of the guy running down the ramp.
Yeah. So you don't miss AJ Styles' debut because you're zoomed in on Roman Reigns' face.
Yes.
Or you don't cut away from Edge's glorious return to zoom to some idiot in the ring.
Yeah.
What a concept.
Yeah. I was like, I forgot that they did that, and it's so much better.
So much better. And then they used to do that overhead shot of the ring too. So when there was like 8 or 9 guys, you got this picture of the ring is getting crowded. What's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. But all right, let's get out of here, Matt. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. Again, the polls are open on our it's the pinned tweet on the KM Wrestling Pod Twitter account. So you can vote on that until Saturday. And drop in the comments here or tweet at us on there. Tell us who you think is going to win, who you think the surprises are going to be, all that good kind of stuff. Again, like and subscribe here on the channel. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. All that good kind of stuff. We'll be back next week with our reactions to the Royal Rumble and whatever else happens in the wrestling world in the next week. So until the next time, see ya.